Driving change in maritime. Welcome to another Vodcast. Today I have with me Oscar Pernia, the head of technology of NextPort.AI. We're going to discuss how actually decision making in ports and terminals is happening in this era. Really looking forward to the conversation. Oscar, welcome. Are you there?
Good morning, Leon. Nice to meet you.
Good to have you on our podcast. I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we're having and going to have. We already did have quite some conversations, so I think we're going to touch some interesting topics for us ourselves, but also for our audience in the maritime industry. But before deep diving into the content, maybe it's good to give a short introduction of yourself and your background.
Thank you, Leon. So my name is Oscar Pernia. I am the head of technology and innovation for NextPort, working already more than 24 years for the industry, in ports and terminals mainly, but also overall in the maritime. I started my career in Port Authority in my hometown, Algeciras, coming as a telecom engineer to basically implement the new radar and the new vessel traffic management system. I spent 7 years in the Port Authority when also I developed my PhD. A PhD focused on optimization and simulation applied to optimizing marine operations at port. And then I had the opportunity to work for Hanjin Shipping, the South Korean shipping line that developed TTI Algeciras. It was the first semi-automated terminal in the Mediterranean. That was my start on automation, where I stayed for a while. After Hanjin Shipping, I moved to Navis, working from the headquarters in San Francisco, where I was leading automation, implementing automation in 17 different terminals across the globe, including Rotterdam, but also others like Long Beach, Qingdao, Melbourne, Abu Dhabi, London, etc., etc. And then also evolving a little bit my role in Navis, focusing on innovation and strategy, where I had the opportunity to build an innovation lab for Navis in Rotterdam. And I also had the opportunity to frame the artificial intelligence strategy for Navis and cargo tech. After that, I was on my way back to California when I received an offer from MSC, a Mediterranean shipping company, to work from the headquarters in Geneva, where I focus again on automation, but also on digitalization, working in different initiatives across the different business units, meaning the terminal unit, Terminal Investment Limited, where I belong to, and also the MSC headquarters digitalization, as for example with Andre Sima on digitalization, blockchain, what it was trade lens as well, and so on. So in 2020, during the pandemic, I conceptualized some of the thoughts regarding artificial intelligence to put that in practice. And that was the beginning of NextPort. NextPort was basically launched as a company, very initial company in 2022, with the investment of Moffat & Nichols. So I got an agreement with Moffat & Nichols, who is a very let's say, a specialized engineering firm in ports and terminals. And with them, we are trying to bring different solutions to the market in 2025. So thank you for the invite. Sorry for the long intro, but I hope it provides context regarding what I did and also what we are doing in NextPort.
Yeah, and I think if I listen into the conversation, of course, we know one another already for a while. But I think there are certain topics that I strongly relate to. Like that is everything that has to do with innovation, technology, optimization, getting things to work in the operational context. That is something which I really like as well. And I think that's also where we first met in the World Port Hackathon. I think Indeed. That was in the innovation area where we're looking on what can technology do in the context of maritime. We had a couple of chats over there, so that is really good, and so happy to have you on the podcast now. One question I'd like to ask to most of the visitors of the podcast is actually, Is there something that people tend to overlook in the maritime industry, something that they do not know and that they should know if they want to navigate that industry, if they want to use technology to optimize, to improve, and to move cargo around? If I ask you that question, what is your take on that?
Well, I think that certainly we see the evolution, especially during the last 5 years, for connecting data, connecting systems. Still a long way to go in my experience. I think that when we are trying to optimize, we have a big issue with the accessibility of data and the data providing what we expect. That's at least an important learning for me during the last 10 years. But also, there is no one system that can optimize the whole thing, right? So interoperability is very important, and also certainly we have progress on standardization and entities like, well, the IMO itself, but also other efforts like DCSA and Teqplay that are trying to create the framework for those solutions to interoperate. But again, still a long way to go when you get into practical initiatives for optimizing the vessel core or optimizing the assets in the terminal. So we need to progress more on connecting the data. We need to progress more on making the systems to interoperate between each other.
Yeah. And we're talking about decision making. I think if you want to make smart decisions, if you want to make good decisions, I think data is going to be a key asset in that respect. And that's something I run into as well. It's about the data and it's about the use of the data. And if we do have the data, does everyone relate to that data in the same way? So the standardization that you were mentioning of DCSA, really key and critical if you want to move towards decision making and alignment in that sense. On the standardization part, what have you seen in the industry? How did that evolve over years? Is it being carried forward by the industry? Is there still reluctance towards standardization? What is your take on that?
I think that the traction that we create in those initiatives is very relevant. And I think that is helping the industry to get to next level of not only digitalization, but also innovation. But when you get into practice, meaning, for example, creating a process replica of the vessel call or a process replica of a container move or a process replica of something happening in the land side at port, is difficult to connect the dots with all these data points and to make I would say, reliable representation of the process. So, and that was a starting point for most of those initiatives, I think. Okay, but I think that again on the systems providing the data we need and those process replica happening in a natural way, not having to spend a lot of time as we do in NextPort, for example. I think for Teqplay is similar on representing those bytes and pieces of the process and putting the process end-to-end represented with data. I think that, still those initiatives that are, again, very good and they got certainly good traction. I think adoption still is not what we need to be able, because the expectation is very high. When you go to management and what they see in terms of potential from digitalization, how you can apply artificial intelligence or simple analytics or predictions that can help decision making, the management see the potential of that. But then when we need to put the data together and we need to prepare that data to provide to enable that optimization capability, the standards are not, in my humble opinion, mature enough to get it and to be, let's say, fast as the management expect. That's my experience. Okay. And of course, I say with all my respect and with all our contribution to those initiatives, which we are working on very actively.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. So I think what I take from it is like it should be, communicating should be as easy as picking up the phone. To use that analogy, that was the way people were communicating. Connecting the systems and speaking the same language is what is the challenge. But zooming in a bit on if I listen into you well, you're saying like the expectation of management or the value that people do see and that they can materialize from AI is so big that we still need to get our standards on a higher level, our way of communicating on a higher level. Is that correct if I frame it like that?
Well, I think that expectation management is certainly an issue when we are talking about technology in general, but particularly on automation or digitalization. How that affect to the bottom line of the profitability and financial parameters of the port, the terminal, or any other actor, right? And then there is a reality on the work that is happening on a daily basis, and how data is being used today. So I think that when we conceptualize, and you and me, we conceptualize systems for a while already, but when you see the reality and how the solution is going to be adopted, change management is an important matter. And again, with all my respects, I don't think that the management or the key stakeholders are taking into account change management seriously enough, because certainly you need to challenge how the processes are driven today, and you need to change some of the things. So when we implement digitalization in general, we don't change generally what we had to change to make it work. And that is basically generating a constraint that is not visible, but that is limiting a lot the impact that we can create.
Yeah. So that's another interesting topic. If I listen into your career as well and the steps and the implementations that you did over the world, I think you must have seen many different ways people are dealing with technology or are running processes. We tend to talk about the maritime industry as one industry and one system. But yeah, there are always also the sayings like one port. If you've seen one port, you've seen one port. I think the same holds for a terminal. If you've seen one terminal, you've seen one terminal. The location is different. The legislation is different. A lot of things are different in that respect. How do you feel like this difference of location, difference of culture will be addressed within the industry? Who will be the change, the ones that are driving the change? What is driving the change?
Well, that's a great question, right? Not easy to answer completely. I would say that in automation is very relevant. The differences that you have between countries like China or South Korea and countries like the Netherlands or Spain or US, when you implement automation. Certainly in those environments, the labor regulations are playing an important role, right? Regarding how automation can be adopted and how, when you are shifting decision-making to the system level, the people has to interact and the people has to be part of the decision-making. So we are not trying to remove people from the decision-making, but shifting them into value-driven areas. Besides, of course, robotizing equipment, which is safer, greener, and more efficient at the end of the day, right? When talking about data, I think that is less difficult, okay? But still, the way different cultures and regions utilize data have some interesting, let's say, connotations, right? So I would say that in general, we want data to be able to analyze how we are performing and eventually capturing that data for being able to introduce predictability on decision making, but also connect the dots across different stakeholders that has to play a role, for example, on the vessel call, right? To the case from Teqplay or NextPort. But then the way the decision is driven and the manual interaction of different stakeholders are playing an important role. So some countries are more oriented to trust and to confidence between each other, right? And to not override decisions. But others are, let's say, more dynamic and more agile in terms of I am changing everything all the time, right? So that's where I see the the main difference. I was working in different countries, not only APAC, right, for China and South Korea, but for example, in Middle East, countries like Israel, where I implement automation, and certainly decision making there, it has a cultural connotation because discipline and hierarchy is a fundamental driver. Then when you implement automation there, the people aspect and how the different decisions are taken and are communicated are playing a fundamental role, meaning that will be much more difficult to introduce a change, right? But all in all, I think that the use of data and instrumenting people to make decisions based on data and to communicate across stakeholders based on that data, this is something that will be generally applicable in any region, right? And we will see the change. The change is happening already, I think.
What do you see as if you would need to give examples of the biggest changes, what are the things that are jumping out for you in the industry, where you say like, okay, this is where I clearly can see changes happening?
Well, let's use two examples, right? So something very close to us, Leon, is the vessel call, right? So we observed for the last 10 years that the people is more measuring, more analyzing the port performance, right? Waiting times, idle time, utilization of resources, all that. So I think that change is happening. And the people, you go to offices in port authorities, but also in traffic control centers and the ship agents and so on. And certainly they are measuring those parameters. So that's an important change. What still has to happen is that everyone is in the same page when talking about taking a decision for the assignment of resources to that vessel, or the anticipation for a congestion that is having 3-4 model vessels coming at the same time, and then you need to be very smart on allocating those resources to those model vessels, right? So that I would say in the port call is happening, but still having everyone in the same page and then optimize is a challenge that I think that big companies like Teqplay and NextPort are going through. Then the other important challenge I would say is that we don't have enough data foundation for the systems being able to learn, right? So most of the times the data around how a vessel call is happening is gone after 1 week or after 1 month, right? So being able to create that foundation for the algorithms to tell us how to better organize something is a fundamental one. And then the other area, the other domain where we play a role in NextPort is control room at terminals, right? And certainly there you see people more focused on continuous improvement, more focused on data, the systems, meaning the TOSes and the equipment control system and so on, using the data for, scheduling or dispatching or assigning a specific container movement in a smarter way. But still, in those environments, the people has to way many systems to interact with. Yep. So to simplify the user experience and to make sense of the data is still an issue, because the recurrent problem that I mentioned before on you have a hard time when you want to replicate with data a specific process like a container move, right? So it's happening, but I would say we are still at a very early stage when talking about the use of data and then the application of artificial intelligence, digital twin, and so on.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think what we see is like people are starting to measure more and more, and I think within specific or owned company processes, this measuring is already happening in a quite some cases in a structural way. But again, if we start talking about the port call, where it's really about collaboration and collaborative decision making, I still do see a lot of challenges in getting a common ground, in knowing for sure that you're talking about the same data, that you have objective measures. But I think technology and data is available. I think we and you are providing these type of data, but getting it to use and implementing it within the processes to drive operations, that is where. Yeah, I really like the challenge that we are embarking on, both of us, I would say. I think that's also interesting. Like we were discussing, the data and having a foundation, but of course there are. It is not always aligned what the business value is for each of the actors within the game. One of the examples I use, and to make it very fun, to frame it very bluntly, it's the best for the terminal to have a lineup of vessels waiting outside, because then they can continuously process all the vessels that are coming in. If we're then reverting back to the initiatives like DCSA and Teqplay 4.0, do you see this collaboration coming in as well in the discussions that are going on standardization, etc.?
Yeah, that's again very interesting question. So I was subject matter expert in DCSA, but also in Teqplay 4.0. I would say it's important that we find common ways of understanding the optimization opportunities, right? So let me use an example. For a while, DCSA has been working on the different just-in-time supporting standards. That includes, of course, the events that articulate the vessel call, but furthermore, the operational vessel schedule, having available from the shipping line data accessible from the schedules engines, meaning that you have the ETA, ETDs, and the planning of those, right, across the rotations and so on. So that is happening. I think that adoption is happening at the shipping line side. But then you have the story of the terminal where you want to optimize the arrival and the departure of the vessel, of course. But you also need to optimize the preparation before you are managing or handling the first container, right? And the same for the departure. So what you had to do with the shipping line and the agent and so on after the last box is discharged or loaded, right? So meaning that the terminal has to be much more granular on gangway down and the lashing activities and special cargo management and so on. So I think that those initiatives are trying to align a common process that the terminal has on optimizing the port stay, right? But still, everyone, meaning the shipping line and the terminal, has their own way to optimize and to create benefits for themselves, right? So the trade-off between the different parties is a fundamental one, meaning in this case between the shipping line and the terminal operator. But the Port Authority also has responsibility on the tugboats and the pilotage and other processes that are important, right? So I think that a starting point, in my view, is to have, as I said before, everyone in the same page, meaning how a particular vessel call is happening. And then we need to much better analyze the resource allocation. But also when you have a problem of allocating resources and that allocation not being completely effective, we need to find ways to analyze those cases, which normally are happening iteratively, meaning that will happen again, and then find ways to anticipate, okay, in this particular case, I need to manage the sequence of vessels and the interference between traffics in a different way, because the previous occasion didn't work well. So what I'm trying to say with this is that being able to anticipate those circumstances is important, okay, for decision making, being not only collaborative but being a little bit prescriptive. And the other thing that we experience and we realize is that the optimization opportunities are mostly in the intersections, meaning shipping line terminal, meaning Port Authority shipping line, or meaning Port Authority and terminal operator. So find ways to correlate and to interconnect those decision making across the community is crucial. In this case, for the vessel call, which is the case that we are talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I think if the vessel call is not predictable, the optimization that you can achieve at a terminal or as a towage company is always suboptimal. I think having predictable information and having the ability to actually answer the why question as well. And I think that is where the continuous improvement also kicks in. Why are things happening the way they are happening? What is the root cause of it? And that is, you need to ask questions, and you need to have the data, collect the data points to improve on that one. And I do see big changes, but I also do see a lot of challenges still in that area to align. Maybe to slightly shift the topic. The other important topic is, of course, sustainability or the green transition. Do you feel that is helping a company like NextPort or Teqplay in the journey that we're on? Is that bringing new energy to the table, and is that opening up conversations that weren't possible before?
It is. I think that both at the Port Authority and terminal operators, which are the market segments that we are approaching, you see in the last few years the resolution. The resolution maybe was already in place, right? But tangible initiatives that are trying to minimize the impact of the operation in the environmental parameters, right? So I think also the way we see from the beginning, we knew that we had to measure emissions, and we have to measure energy consumption and so on. So across the last few years that is happening is translated into some regulations like the emission trading system in Europe. Mm-hmm. So that is important, of course, for the shipping line, but for the Port Authority to facilitate, the just-in-time practice, but in what it relates to, again, less emissions and less energy consumption. But I think we are in a very early stage, right? What I miss a bit is that those. So I love the sea, right? And I am a windsurfer in my free time, so I love to play a role into this. It really helped creating, a sense of purpose on what we do in terms of solution. But what I miss a little bit is the connection of those emission analytics and energy analytics back to the planning side. So how you plan a vessel rotation across different ports, right? Of course, I also realize that the shipping lines are doing a huge investment, not only to facilitate, new alternative fuels playing a role into the navigation, but also the navigation safety and everything else that is related to, how basically a vessel consume energy and produce emissions. But it's not, what I'm trying to say is that in the shipping line is very present, but it didn't translate so far to the rest of the community. And mm-hmm. Certainly also when we had to decarbonize, it has to involve not only the vessel side, which is our main focus now, but the end-to-end logistic perspective, right? So that is something that, of course, we will see progressing into. So far is very vessel-centric, but it's great that it's happening at the shipping line, at the Port Authority, and at the regulation frameworks. I would say they mm-hmm. will play very important role, not only in Europe. And then, of course, our solution will need to support the decarbonization and minimizing the carbon footprint.
Yeah, I can relate to that part. Like it's vessel focused, it's vessel oriented. Fuels are the key driver that the industry is looking at. Even though with the increased price of fuels, optimization should be earning itself back way quicker. But it's actively a way of looking at. But on the priorities, I still see like. Ports, but also terminals can take a more proactive role in that sense to push that forward on operational excellence. I really think sustainability will help, and especially legislation like the EU ETS you were mentioning. So I hope that will be a driving force for the optimization and optimization initiatives that we run on that part and efficiency that we're bringing to the table. Any last observation you would like to share? I think we're going to an end, but is there something else that the audience should know or you want to share?
Well, maybe I forgot to mention electrification, right? By port authorities on facilitating cold iron inshore power to vessels and so on. But in terms of, thank you for the conversation. First of all, Leon, it's very interesting. As you mentioned, we are talking for a while, and I feel you as a partner in terms of creating solutions that will help the industry to move forward. But I would say continuous improvement is becoming a fundamental area. Of course, it's related to optimization, but so far we have, I would say, the stakeholders implementing continuous improvement are doing the exercise from, let's say, outsider point of view. So you have continuous improvement departments, and those are not criticizing, but helping the people doing the daily job and the daily operation, meaning the planning and the execution better and better, right? So with data and technology, we need to integrate continuous improvement in the real time and in the execution, in the planning activities, right? It cannot be an outsider view anymore, because then you have basically the in-house consultants that are trying to help you improving your business, but in the way we work today, which is more just in time and more, focus on dynamically reacting to circumstances, continuous improvement has to be a capability that we develop and we perform actively in execution, and the data will help on that. So we have faster, better, more connectable technology that can, optimize across systems and across stakeholders. So we need to leverage that, and this will be the next levels of innovation that we will see with different platforms interoperating between each other, and certainly the user having a simpler way to interact with the system and to have more empathy on what the algorithms and the AI and the digital twins will provide to him or her. So I think it's crucial that first, we bring continuous improvement to real time, to execution. And second, we connect the dots across systems, simplifying the user interaction.
Well, I'm really with you. And on the continuous improvement, it's key that capability is really deeply ingrained in the organization. With the number of changes that are happening globally continuously, I think being able to adapt is one of the key factors that you need to have in your organization. Oscar, I would like to thank you very much for the interview. I really enjoyed to have this chat again, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Leon, and thank you, Teqplay, for putting this very interesting forum in action.